This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1916, Buy, Borrow, BWA-HA-HA.
The very first Game 7 in Phillies postseason history. Let's hope it goes well for the Fighting Phils.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Or at least better than last night's game.
That was really disappointing. I was messaging somebody that I conversed with at work about the Phillies, and Tori got to like the ninth inning, and I'm like, I could have been doing something else tonight. I could have been watching paint dry for all the good it did me.
Do we have anybody else joining us this evening?
I don't know. I haven't heard from Mr. Deemer, so he might not be able to make it today. I mean, he's usually on time, so.
Yeah.
Gotcha. He's had another concert, probably.
What could possibly top Queen?
Yeah, as much as I don't like concerts, that would have been a pretty cool one to see.
I've never been to a concert.
I've been to
That's
5.
Yeah.
3 of them were Billy Joel, 1 Phil Collins, and 1995 it was the group Live.
Oh yeah.
I remember them. They're from York.
From their Throwing Copper album. Yep, Carlene took me on one of our first dates.
So I think the weird I don't know if this has to do with like bad luck, good luck, or whatever, but the very first concert I was supposed to go to was in junior high or high school. We were going to go see Heart.
Oh yeah.
So we used to love, the lead singers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my family had arranged for us to get a limo to go to wherever the concert was being held. Well, the limo was late.
Oh.
So my friends took off. Like they were like, well, we don't want to be late. So they left, and I was kind of pissed that my family, like it didn't work out. And then I think the limo eventually showed up, but I was like, F it, I'm not going. So I didn't go. Then the second concert, I think, was also live as well. Or if it wasn't live, it was, whatever group it was, they were early enough in their career that they used to perform at River City. What's that?
Oh, River. What the heck was that club called?
Well, it's down by, down by Rack, like they used to have that festival that would go all along the river. And I forget what they called it. So it was either there or maybe it was Hershey. I don't remember. Anyway, somebody had tickets. They were moving that weekend, and they threw the tickets away.
Jeez.
Bad luck.
Wasn't able to go there, right? Then I'm moving out of my apartment in Philly, senior year of college. I was dating a girl at the time. And we were going to go see Alanis Morissette. This is in the middle 90s. Mm-hmm. Maybe she was at Hershey. I'm mixing all my stories. I'm old. I don't remember anything anymore. But anyway, we were going to go see Alanis Morissette. I have all my stuff in a van. I go to the van the next morning, start it, and it wasn't starting. And like the whole van something was wrong. And then her dad met us, and he was like, well, let's try to get you to a mechanic. He was literally pushing the van with his car behind him. And it had something to do with like the alternator or like some kind of connection with the thing. And so I could drive it, but it would barely go 30, 40 miles. I went from Philly to Reading under 30 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
On the highway, my lights blinking the whole effing way. It took like 3 hours or whatever it took. And we couldn't go to the concert. We missed the concert. So I figured after that 3 times I was supposed to go to concerts, I was like, well, I don't think I should go.
And don't get me wrong, concerts are not my favorite thing. The only reason I went to Billy Joel 3 times is because, well, we like him and he sounds good live
It's Billy
as
Joel.
much as recorded. Phil Collins sounds good live, and live sounded great live. But there's a lot of other bands that don't sound great live, and I don't really care to spend that money and be miserable. So, yeah, I'm sure there may come a time where I go see another concert, but it's few and far between. Not my favorite thing in the world to do.
Plus, I'm not a fan of like there are seats there, but everybody stands.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Everybody has their cell phones up. You know? Can we go back to a time when we don't need all that stuff? You know.
And the music is I mean, it's loud for a reason, but it's so loud. Like the next time I go to a concert, the people that sat around us, because we took both boys to see Billy Joel a few years ago, and it was so deafening. I had a headache when I left there. I mean, this is Billy Joel, but we were actually sitting, so it was not people standing in front of us for the most part. And the people all around us had earplugs in. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Don't you like not hear things? I'm like, no, it just cuts down on all the loudness, but you can still hear everything. So I'm like, well, shit, next time I go to a concert, I'm going to try that because I had a miserable headache when I left there.
Yeah.
It was just too loud.
Adam, were you going to say something? I thought it looked like you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to interject when you mentioned people holding their cell phones up as little glow sticks in a concert. I was just going to say it's just one more way in which cell phones have destroyed Western culture.
Wait, can you give us one other reason? What else do you?
People being in each other's business and just wallowing in one another's mental filth constantly instead of just keeping to their own thoughts. It's more social media in general than cell phones specifically, but
sure,
you get the picture.
Yeah. Hey, that's what ruined my last relationship. You know, just way too easy access of, you know, I think of it this way. You know, like every app has a direct message feature, right? You can direct message someone on Facebook. You can direct message on Instagram, Twitter, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
If we were sitting in your home 10 o'clock at night and the landline rang and some dude calls and says to your girl, hey, how are you? What's up? At 10 at night, you know, or like weird time, we wouldn't be okay with that. You know, like, come on. So I am with you on that one, Adam. All right. Well, let's talk about Keith Giffen. Can we talk about Keith Giffen?
Yeah.
Talk about Keith Giffen. Yeah. That was so Keith Giffen, creator, writer, artist, curmudgeon, brilliant madman. Most people who are listening probably know, you know, he's co-creator of Lobo, Ambush Bug, you know, the list goes on and on. Passed away on Monday, October 9th. But then we all learned of it when his family posted his amazing self-epitaph where he says, I told him I was sick, anything to get out of going to New York Comic Con.
Yep.
Keith Giffen, his birth year, his death year. Thanks. Blah, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah.
And everybody went, oh, that's funny.
Cute. That's funny. Yeah.
What? And then all of a sudden we were like, wait, what?
Yeah, when I saw that first, it took me a while, and like, wait a minute, what? So I did something I don't like to do, which I went to Bleeding Cool, which is where the story was linked, and looked at the article and said, and I texted Shane. I said, Shane, I think Keith Giffen passed away, and then
Shane texted me. Yeah, that's how I found out. Yeah, and that was sad. This is one that, you know, unlike, I said before, like, unlike George Perez, who we know was sick, and he even said that he had a finite time left, you know, this one was like, what? You know, sort of like Tim Sale and Carlos Pacheco, like, you know, just, and he was such a pivotal creator in terms of me as a comic reader, and I'm sure many of you as well, like the stuff that we liked or gravitated to had some Keith Giffen influence there, you know?
Yep. Yep, I've been following him since 1986. Yeah, that one hurt. I mean, we're getting older, and we have a lot of things, articles we see, so and so passed away, so and so passed away, and it goes on and on. And seems to happen more and more often. But there's some that just hurt, and this one hurt a little bit.
I think a lot of it has to do with the uniqueness of his creativity and the longevity of the things that he worked on with his collaborators. I mean, we're talking about, if they ever get this whole new DC movie thing going, some of that stuff could be based on his versions of whatever, the Justice League, certainly Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle movie had elements. He co-created Jaime Reyes.
Yeah.
Certain elements of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has his imprint on there. Not that he cared, like if you ever watch those YouTube videos, the few YouTube videos that he put out with his son-in-law, and there's conversations about the movie stuff, and they ask him if you'd be interested, if they came to you and said, would you like to work on Lobo or whatever, would you do it? And he said, sure, I would do it if it really was me working on that. If they just want my opinion or something, you can go read my comics. They're all there. And he elaborates and says, movies that's a whole other thing. They're different from what he produced. He doesn't really care, but they're mining his seeds, at least. If it's not a direct translation, it's certainly the seeds of what he has created.
Did any of you get to meet him in person at a con or anything like that?
I did. I can safely say I met him, J.M. DeMatteis, and Kevin McGuire all at the very first New York Comic Con, and I took my right. It's right there. You can't see it, of course. I could rip it off the wall, but there's a promo poster that would have been in comic shops for the Justice League from 1986, and Carlene and I had just moved into our first house, and we shared an eBay account, and I was bidding on this poster, and it went too high, and I gave up. And the next morning I woke up because I was really curious. I wanted to see what it went for. And here it said I won it, but it was not any amount that I put in. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like getting ready to send off eBay. And Carlene finally said, look, I did it. It's for our anniversary. She goes, you kind of ruined it. I'm like, well, it's my account. How am I supposed to know? I got an email saying I won it. However I saw it.
So you jacked the price up.
So, she gave it to me, and I had it for a few years in a frame, and you guys saw it over time. But when the first New York Comic Con came around and I found out they were all going to be there, I carefully folded it up and put it between two very thick pieces of cardboard because it came folded. It was a folded promo poster like you'd see in any shop. And I put it between two very thick pieces of cardboard, and I hauled it off to New York Comic Con that very first year. And I went up to each of them individually, and I got to talk to them for a couple minutes each about Justice League. They weren't really sitting close together, which I was kind of hoping they were, but they weren't. But yeah, in turn, I think Keith was the last one that I got to meet. And I, again, talked to each of them for a couple minutes, but that was something I can at least say I met and talked to Keith Giffen about my love of Justice League and other comics that he did. And that was kind of thrilling for me.
Is it the cover to issue 1?
Yeah. Yep.
Because you have the other one behind you all the way up.
Yeah,
there.
I have the old class of Justice League 1,
like the school photo type poster.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, Pants, have you met him along the way on your travels?
I have. I'm not sure which con it was, but I did take our show bound copy of Who's Who, and I had him sign it. And I think also at the same con, Colleen Doran, I got her sign it because I found out through the Twitter that they were friends. And she would go out with him to have high tea, and it was beautiful to see her reminiscences of him. But I remember that when I did get him a son, I did a very brief conversation with him before he went out to go smoke, which was, unfortunately one of the things that I'm sure didn't do him any good. But I think I asked him briefly about doing the breakdowns for 52, which I own almost all of them. So I thought that was kind of neat to just have a little brief comment. And of course, he was very pleasant, not curmudgeonly as you might think, but just very pleasant and nice. And I'm happy that I get a chance to talk to him for even just a few minutes at a con like that. That was nice.
Wait, you own the breakdowns?
Yes, almost all of his pencil breakdowns. You didn't know that?
No, I mean, I knew, I actually wrote it down because I was like, wait, I should maybe ask Pence. I don't know if he wants to talk about it. Your 52 collection, I know about that. I didn't know you also own the breakdowns.
Yeah, I own almost all of them. Issue 25 was given to editor Steve Wacker, so I don't own that. But I mean, I can literally see my binders. I have them in 2 binders there. But yeah, all the pencil breakdowns.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I knew that.
Well, I posted a few of them on the comic forums back in the day because, well, first of all, they were all posted online when it was coming out. And there's actually some great behind the scenes on the pages of how it was determined who wrote what. There's different ways that I won't get into. There's different ways you can tell who wrote what, which is on the breakdowns. But occasionally be playful and make it just a fun break. There's a funny breakdown he's got with, I think, Adam Strange in a bar with somebody. So there's a few of those, but yeah, I have all the original breakdowns.
Wow.
Almost all the original pencil breakdowns.
See, that to me, that's like a masterclass, in for history, because what he did there, and that's how he plotted his books. He just took he said he took an 8.5 by 11 page, drew a mini comic basically, and then handed that off to, like Kevin McGuire or a scripter, and then they would turn it into pencils. But he never wrote scripts, or I shouldn't say never. He predominantly did. That's how he did his plotting with the comics. So, of course, it made sense for him to do that for 52. Number one, he was fast. Number two, he was a hell of a storyteller.
Yeah.
And then that way the artists wouldn't have to think of it themselves. They could just follow that. And then, yeah. So that's from issue 1.
That's the splash page when they're all going to the statue with Superman's with all the heroes that are going.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was funny when I bought them from the dealer. Obviously, I bought them all at one time. He said to me, in all seriousness, he goes, I also have his breakdowns for Countdown. I'm like, no, thank you. I'll just take the one from 52.
Stay in the lane.
Wow. If I bring you unlimited Golden Corral coupons, can I can I see that in person and take,
I actually haven't eaten a Golden Crown quite some time, but like I said, sometime I'll be happy to let you look through them. But yeah, I wish I could. There's a website out there. I'm not sure if it's still up, where I found out, and I don't know if I can even tell from these breakdowns, where it's sort of like the way because it lists on the breakdowns like who should be speaking, to put their word balloons or things like that. And that was the way that you could determine like who wrote each page or each dialogue, which I didn't know when I was initially reading that. So again, just a great piece of, I'm a big fan of the 52 comics, so that's great to have. And again, great to meet Keith Giffen. He's talked to him very briefly about that.
I want to say when I talked to him, he made a comment about, I guess I'll sign it because the other 2 guys already did, or something like that. Because again, he was the last one I got to see.
Well, he never chased fame, right? I mean, he used to say like, I'm not in this to chase fame. He just wanted to make comics, and the comics he wanted to make were comics that weren't being produced, right? If somebody handed him a really popular character, he'd rather go and play with the character nobody cares about.
Yeah.
Because then he can do whatever he wanted. So, Adam, did you ever meet him?
I saw him from a distance at multiple conventions. Saw him on panels a couple of times too, but I don't believe I ever actually spoke to the man.
Yeah, same here. And we did have him on CGS. When we did Annihilation, when we covered Annihilation, I think the very first episode, or maybe it was like a preview episode, we had Andy Schmidt, we had Keith Giffen, and Andre DeVito, I think, was the artist to talk about Annihilation. So
that's going back.
Oh yeah,
it's late 2006 there.
Yeah, wow.
I also have one of the other creations here.
Oh, that's right.
My stuffed rocket raccoon. I happen to have that nearby. I don't know why. Don't ask me why.
You sleep with it at night?
What's the line from Looney Tunes? I hug him, I stroke him, I squeeze him tight.
And I call him George.
Call him George.
Does anybody remember their first Keith Giffen comic or earliest Keith Giffen comic?
I think it might have been The Heckler.
Oh, good one.
Yep. Right in there, like 93, 94. I was just starting to get into DC Comics. It was one of the first DC miniseries I ever bought.
What'd you think of it?
Funny, extreme, especially the first issue. I remember thinking at the time that the succeeding issues never quite reached that plateau of humor. But he put all the good stuff in the first issue and hooked me in, and so did the job. Yeah, it was. I thought it was an interesting character. Well, visually well designed. That yellow costume with the word "ha" over and over again on it, and that sort of comedy mask face. And then the idea that he was, zany and funny whenever he was in the costume, and the rest of the time was just some schlub who owned a diner. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I knew who Keith Giffen was until then. A close second probably would have been like the first Ambush Bug miniseries, which I remember finding in the discount racks at the Atlantic Bookstore here in Stone Harbor.
But I mean, certainly he was someone who loved that Looney Tunes type humor. That was fun,
Definitely.
smart, silly at times, loved visual gags, his puns. So
Yeah.
what about you, Pants? Do you know?
I don't, because that was in the 90s. I was reading so many comics. I wasn't necessarily focused on who was creating them. I was more on like the characters. I do have the Heckler in my collection. I know I've read it at some point. I'm not sure that was my first one. But of course, Justice League and what have you. That might have been the first one that I think I probably did read of his, I'm aware of.
Mine was definitely Justice League, picking up issue, 4 or 5 and the annual on vacation in Ocean City, New Jersey one year. Back 86, whenever they were all coming out. That totally would have been my first one. Again, like Adam, I didn't know who he was at that time, but I know that would have been the first one I had.
Yeah. My very first Legion comic was Legion of Superheroes 304. So I'm fairly certain it was my first Keith Giffen. It's definitely my first Legion issue, but I can't think of anything else that was prior to that he was working on that I got. And then I remember picking up that Ambush Bug miniseries and was that's ultimately what made me really like that tone that Giffen had. Again, he's plotting it through a scripter who I think was Robert Loren Fleming, I think. So it's Giffen filtered through whoever he's co-writing with, but obviously his jokes survive and his antics survive. So then by the time it came to Legends and then seeing those promos for Justice League of America, and I don't necessarily think I was following his name, but certainly by the time you get, 2-3 issues into that series, you realize you're reading something that's unlike anything else on the shelf at the time, both in terms of even the artwork. The Kevin Maguire artwork felt, I don't know, just perfect for that type of book.
Yeah.
I want to say I think he thought he was going to draw it as well, but then realized at some point that would have been a mistake. I think that's what the interview said.
Now I'm trying to look up what was there was an issue of DC Comics Presents where I think was the Ambush Bug introduced in that issue.
Yeah, it was the Doom Patrol, where the character Superman was teaming up with in that issue. I can't give you a number. I think it's in the 20s, though.
I can give you
Please.
52.
Oh, really?
okay.
Okay. Well,
That's easy to remember.
because I'm going to pull back my CGS history memory, which is sometimes very shaky. But I believe one of the times that Tom King was in studio, he presented us, the show, with an original page from that issue.
What?
But I don't know where that page is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if we talked about it on the air. I'm going to have to go listen back to the episodes when he was in studio, but I can almost guarantee you somewhere in the city of Reading, there was a page from DC Comics Presents 52 done by Keith Giffen, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Did it have Ambush Bug on it?
I don't think it was that, but well, it might have, but it wasn't like his first appearance. It was later on in the book, but I don't know where that page is.
Oh my God, that's scandalous. Yeah, it was DC Comics Presents 52.
Mhm.
Paul Kupperberg was your writer, or at least listed as writer. And then it was issue 59 that features the Legion of Substitute Heroes and Ambush Bug again. And the success of that particular issue showed DC, and that was with Paul Levitz, Keith Giffen, plotter, penciler. Because that was so popular, sold so well, DC was like, okay, we want you to do Legion of Substitute Heroes special. And that's how you got the special. That did so well, and Giffen felt like he was able to push the envelope with that special. If you've ever read it, it's also very zany. It's very Looney Tunes like. He's drawing that issue. He realized that he could, quote unquote, get away with things. And it's because of that's what eventually led to, well, then I'm going to do this with Justice League as well. Like if he hadn't had success with some of those earlier comedy issues, who knows, maybe Justice League would have been different. But there's a trajectory there from one to the next, and certainly with Ambush Bug as well. And
let me look at something. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Okay. We'll be right here, Shane. We'll keep the light on for you.
The only time I saw him at a panel was at San Diego Comic-Con, so it must have been 2006 or 2008, one of those two.
Okay.
And I think it was a panel specifically for him. I'm not sure if it was for him, Annihilation, but I think it was for him. I was standing in the back, or sitting in the back, and it wasn't a big room, but when it came time to like ask questions, I wanted to ask a question. I don't remember what it was, but I stood up because, you know, we've been to panels where someone says a question and inevitably you want to like see who is saying it. You sometimes can't hear them. So I stood up, I don't know why, I just stood up, and Keith said, "Why are you standing?" I was like, so you can hear me. I don't know, you know. And then I just asked my question, and that was it, you know. So
That one?
There it is, Pants.
Oh, so you have it.
Yep. I cleaned out the studio one time when it was getting really wet and damp and dilapidated, and shit was getting thrown all over. And I like, there's no way in hell I'm leaving artwork in there. So yeah, it's here.
Well, I'm happy to know that it's because my memory was pretty sure that it was there. Okay, so now I know who's got it. Wonderful. Do you know what page number it is? I'm sorry, I should have asked that before.
No, it's fine. It is.
And why do you have it? No more kidding.
Because I don't want it destroyed and nobody else is around.
I got you. It's all good. All love.
DC Comics Presents issue 52, December 1982, page 8. No, page 6. It says 8 at the top, but it says 6 on the bottom left corner, drawn in.
The bottom 6 is the actual page of the story. The 8 number is the page with the ads in it.
Right.
Okay, so then page 8.
So I saw Superman's like flying. What else is on the page there? Actually, is there any? Is on the page?
No,
I don't think he's on the page. Okay.
No. Nope. Superman coming at you. There's Superman going through Skyline. Superman coming at you.
It's got Negative Woman.
Negative Woman. Superman coming down and then Superman facing up, bashing like he's punching Negative Woman. No.
Did anybody sign the artwork? Okay.
Nope.
Well, that's a cool thing. I'm glad. Seriously, I'm glad to know that it's somewhere because I didn't know whatever happened to it.
Yep. It's between a page that Jamie's sister gave me that was his by Buzz for Seven Soldiers Bulleteer, and a page I have from Mike Norton from Teen Titans Go from Ben. Ben has a Teen Titans Go page from Mike Norton, and Matt has a Spider-Man Adventures page with Mysterio from Mike Norton. So that's why somehow it ended up in the book in that order. Not that means anything, but
very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. Like I said, nice to have. At some point, I have to get that from you so I can scan it for maybe because Well, I do have 11x17 scanner for artwork, so I'd be happy to scan that at some point for archive purposes only.
Sure.
I will wear gloves.
But yeah, there was some other things like, I don't know, a couple of the things people did for our con programs that were really not in a safe place in the studio as crap was getting piled on it. So I stored it inside one of the other portfolios because I didn't want that stuff getting wrecked.
Bless you, Shane.
Yeah. And thank God I did, because we had a little bit of a water damage with the hot water heater in the studio. So who knows what would have happened to it if it would have just left it there.
We need a GoFundMe to start a CGS museum between all the artwork, that people have sent, that people have donated, that we all individually have for one, like birthdays, you guys got me a Mike Norton Titans versus Mad Mod page, or like I have Vibe, the Death of Vibe pages by Luke McDonnell, like just things like that, and plus not to mention all that stuff, but like just the Who's Who signature binder is such a wealth of
that. I don't, is that still at the studio? The Who's Who book?
Yep, it's just another shelf.
Yeah.
I should go check on that to make sure that's not getting moldy or anything with all the crap that's gone on there lately.
Yeah, and speaking of birthday gifts and Keith Giffen and 52, I still have the bound edition you guys got me for my birthday many, many years ago.
Yeah. I still have the Justice League bound version that you guys got me. It's on the shelf over there. And artwork, oh my God, you guys got me a Batman drawing by... Shit, I can't remember his name. That's terrible, I'm blanking. He did one for a bunch of us. I know Jamie had one too.
I've been Scott Neely.
No, it wasn't Scott, but I do have a Scott Neely Blue Beetle, but it wasn't Scott Neely that did the Batman one.
I've got a Mike Norton Bizarro Chats with the Mad Hatter sketch.
That was that's the second in New York Comic Con.
It was, yes, when we were up on that upper gallery level. And I remember the large hug I gave Norton when he presented it to me.
And there was a photo of you holding the artwork with a huge smile across your face, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
That's embarrassing. I can't remember all these things anymore.
Shane, we're all getting old. We can't remember things. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but maybe it's in here. It's got to be in here.
Just keep taking your medication.
Let's think of the years, how many years ago all this stuff was and how many conventions,
Brent Schoonover.
Nice.
Ah, yes.
Ooh. Yep, another friend of ours.
Somewhere there was a colored version that went with this. It was just a file. I lost the file. I cannot find that sucker to save my life in any drive that I've ever had. But after Brent drew it, somebody colored it. But the colorized version was only on a file somewhere on a computer.
Suddenly, Brian's idea of, remember he talked about we need to get like a photo album printed of all the pictures that are online. Yeah. Now it's like we almost need to get like a CGS, what do you call it? A tome, a CGS.
That
whatever.
ball is gone. Tie game.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank God.
Oh, have we been trailing?
We had
It
been
was
trailing.
1-0. Now that was a home run by Alec Bohm.
Yep.
All right, drop the A-bomb. It's about time.
Yeah, it's bottom of the
Yes.
second.
You better hope they win, or when you listen back to this, it's going to be very sad.
Yeah.
Well, I love watching the Phillies, but really, if they lose, I'm not getting paid, so it's not much skin off my back.
I've already made it with the Phillies' mortality here.
If only there was some kind of important CGS anniversary coming up and soon.
But yeah, going back to Keith Giffen, it's a little sad to think that you won't get any new funny stuff.
Or just all the history that we've lost because, he was starting to do those videos, and they're just a wealth of information in his very Keith Giffen way, like his son-in-law asks him a question, and sometimes his answer is, well, there's no deep reasoning behind it. I just did it because I did it, or I killed that character because I didn't like them, or here's what I did this because the fans appreciated it, especially when he talks about the Legion. And he has his dry sort of humor as he talks about his career and his life, and they only got 3 episodes out. I don't know if there's any unused footage that maybe they'll release later, but with all of the ways and all the podcasts and all the video stuff out there, it's like, just, we need to keep doing more and more of that. People need to just get these creators behind a mic and a camera and just talk. We're losing a lot of information as some of these legends disappear.
One of the neater ones, one of the ones I always liked was the one that aired on PBS, I think, a few years ago, maybe, 10, 15 years ago. And Neil Adams was talking about Batman a lot in it. And I always thought that was kind of cool. Ramona Fradon was in that one.
There's a lot of great stuff. I mean, I just saw recently I think it's on Prime, a Dave Stevens documentary. And I have very little experience with The Rocketeer outside of the movie, and his career. And it was just so interesting to see how, he was fortunate that he lived in California. He grew up with the San Diego Comic-Con, which is how he met this person and that person and one of the Hernandez brothers or many of the Hernandez brothers, met the right people, starts drawing, works with Russ Heath, I believe, did some inking on Star Wars comics and strips. It's just like, what? I didn't know any of that. And then eventually just goes on and on and on. It's a really fascinating documentary on his life. And
I have to look that up. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And who's on there? Like Adam Hughes is on there. Bruce Timm is on there. Thomas Jane is on there. I guess somewhere along the way he met Dave Stevens. So he's on there. Trying to think who else. Scott Shaw is on there as one of the people. And then there's many, many others, obviously. Close friends of Dave Stevens. There's a lot of documentaries on Prime for comics. Just really great stuff on there.
I haven't watched the ones that came on Max recently on HBO's thing. I don't know how many parts it is. Yeah, the DC one.
Yeah, I saw that was there, but from a very quick glance, I got the impression, and I believe I was backed up by some online posts that are geared more towards the movies and TV. It's like, that's what I would be looking for.
Kind of what I heard too.
But I wanted to see the creators and so forth. And there are there, but it was more, I think, geared towards the TV and movies, which is fine if that's your thing. It's just wasn't my thing to sit down and invest the amount of time it was on to watch it.
Yeah, so I've been kind of hesitant to start it.
Did you went to New York Comic-Con, right, Pants?
I did. I also went to the Baltimore Comic-Con before that, and if I can sort of go on for a little bit about those two shows, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. The Baltimore Con, which actually happened the week before Stone Harbor, so I'm sorry I missed Stone Harbor because I would have told you guys about this at that time. But going to Baltimore was pretty much the first Comic-Con I've gone to where I spent any kind of time and shopping at since before the pandemic. And we're now near the end of 2023. So it's been like 4 or 5 years I've been to a real big con. I've been to New York since then for a Saturday for just a few hours. But, Baltimore Comic-Con is along with, I think, Heroes, one of my favorite Comic-Cons just for comic-centric things.
Yeah.
Which is what I was going there for. There was a lot of creators there. Now, I went there on a Friday when it opened like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and was there for the rest of the day Friday, a little bit Saturday. There wasn't a whole lot of foot traffic on Friday, I'm going to guess me, because kids might have still been in school at that time or whatever, people were working. So if you wanted some face time with the creators, you might have to wait for there were certain ones that had huge lines, but you could talk to them if you wanted to. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to this con. Well, my friend John also wanted to go, but I just hadn't been to a con and wanted to catch up with some people, even just for a few minutes to get a couple of hi, how you doing? Good to see you, that kind of thing. Because again, we know so many folks from the conventions over the years and the podcast. But of course, I go upstairs when it shows getting ready to open. I get my pass. Actually, I paid for a ticket. What the concept? Paying to go to a Comic-Con. I haven't done that in forever, so I was just one of the hoi polloi. So I pick up my ticket, I come out of the line, and somebody goes, "Pants!" I'm like, "What?" Because I'm not even wearing any paraphernalia, and I wasn't really even talking. I was just going, and this guy, Mike from Michigan, recognized me. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. So that was right off the bat, good start to the show. I met Adam, remember Josh Marowitz down from North Carolina. He was up for Baltimore for the con, so I ran into him. But then just talking to creators for just a few minutes with FaceTime. Art and Franco from Tiny Titans were there. I had forgotten that Franco had retired from teaching, so he's like putting all his efforts into comics right now, which is very cool. I got to talk to Jamal Igle for a few minutes. And Mark Buckingham came over from the UK. He Fables fame. He actually remembered me from the London convention, so had a nice, very brief chat. That was very nice. David and Julia Peterson were there, and they say hi to all the CGS crew. They miss us, and they want to say hi to all you guys. So they was very nice to see them. I had a Katie Cook signing.
Oh,
she was there.
How's she feeling?
Well, this was before that. I've seen she's okay now. She did have a bit of a health scare. She was in a hospital for a while. I know she's out and she's doing better, but she sort of mentioned on her public posts that she sort of needs to just make some life changes, as she sort of gestured around, so that happens to all of us. I was going through back issues to talking to the dealer, and somebody says, "Hey, Pants." I'm like, here we go again. Chris Fitzer from Ad House Publishing from back in the day.
Nice.
He recognized my voice. I'm like, well, that's fantastic. I love that. So we had, again, a nice brief chat with him.
He was always such a cool guy. I mean, he came up to Super Show at least once, right? There was that Ad House magnet sticker that was always on some, safe or something for all the many years that we were there.
And my friend Wayne Mousseau from Canada was there. He's a big art guy, so I ran into him. And of course, I want to say hi to Tom King. And of course, Tom is just so nice. Even though he had a bit of a line, he was just very happy to see me. Very, very nice. Had nice things to say. And everyone in earshot about how he loved the podcast and everything. So that was a very nice. And if I would have been thinking clearly, I would have brought along something for him to sketch on, because he was doing, if you've seen him do those stick figure sketches, he was doing them there. And I would love to get one of those, but I didn't think to bring anything along. I just wanted to talk and say hi to him. So maybe in the future. That was really cool.
He must hate that is now a thing, It's like he can't just get away with the signature. Now he has to do these sketches.
yeah.
And then Saturday, I was at a Mark Waid panel. And at some point, 52 was brought up, and I might have said just to myself, like, 52. And after the panel, someone said, "Pants, I heard you say 52." It was Justin who was at the panel, listener to us. So that was That was very cool. But I had a very brief agenda besides meeting some creators of just going through back issues and quite frankly going through the dollar bins. So I mean, I had a very brief list, and I know I shouldn't be buying more comics after we went through our organization skills, but there were some things I wanted to get. And the nice thing about this particular show, besides a great show buying for comics, you had a lot of dealers who had a lot of their overstock when they buy, I guess maybe trying to get ratio covers and things like that.
Yep.
I went off my list and found like over $50 books that I really wanted to get. And actually many of them, if not most of them, were from Tom King because I stopped buying comics more or less. So I found all the issues from Rorschach, almost all the ones from Human Target, all of the ones at that point from Love Everlasting, all the ones from that point of Danger Street, all for $1. And for the most part, I had my choice of which cover I wanted to pick out there because there's just dozens and dozens of these. So I was like a pig in crap, Oh, look, it was great. So that was again a really good con for shopping. And one of the books that I found in the dollar bins, which I wasn't really looking for, Mark Waid was there, of course, and I found a copy of Batman, Superman, World's Finest. I've heard good things about that, so I bought the first issue, but I couldn't find like a regular copy, so the copy I got for $1 is the variant with Jerry Seinfeld and Superman and Batman getting coffee. The whole thing where I was like, what kind of a
I don't know if I saw that cover. I'll have to look that up.
It's cool, but I got it for $1, but just to read it. So it's like, and it was a good read. Now I got to go find the rest of the issues in the dollar bins. But yeah, a very good show for a dollar bin shopping. And like I said, if you're not careful, it can get away from you. Like I said, it's like, okay, I'm gonna just keep going through and get the whole run of Love Everlasting, all these books.
If you're buying dollar comics and they're from the last 8 years, 7, 8 years, 6, 7, 8 years, absolutely that's worth it. You know? It just speaks to, as you say, we used to comment about that when we used to really go to the conventions, like 6, 7, 8 conventions a year. You're going to find current comics cheap at conventions because retailers are either chasing variants or they're ordering on Marvel, which was a thing, especially in the 2000s. But yeah, it totally makes sense. I could, if you're someone that goes to conventions, so what if you miss an issue, if you don't pick it up off the rack, you're going to find it. And some of those retailers are probably not even retailers, right? They're probably sellers who just go from convention to convention to convention, and they just happen to have a diamond account for some reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I posted on our Facebook page, despite the fact I did find a lot of books there were a lot of spaces I wouldn't go through because their books were not in alphabetical order. Now, I know, Murd, I know you love the chase.
Yeah,
but I'm in my mid-50s. I can't deal with that anymore. My knees are bad. I'm not getting down
And
there.
you see, it's the fact that people like you are deterred by the lack of alphabetical order that makes it such a rich hunting ground for people like myself.
So my loss is your gain, basically.
Yeah, I'm with Pants on that one. I can't stoop down and do that for hours anymore.
I can, I do, I have. I wish I could do it again.
Yeah. Maybe if they bring I see every now and then I see a vendor who actually has these foam mats down there. So when you put your knees down there, you're not on the concrete.
That I would do.
That's a blessing. That's a tip of the hat to you guys for that. Yep. But only if they're in alphabetical order will Pants pursue your bins there.
You need to invest in those. What are those knee things that painters or hardware people have?
I used to have a set. When I worked at Toys R Us, Pants, when I was stocking the shelves.
I know you did.
It was so easy to just flop down. You felt nothing. They were great.
But I'm going to a comic convention. I should have to bring along my own gear, for goodness sake.
Wait,
it's cosplay.
Yeah, right. You could put little, like the Flash symbol or, or something.
This is your battle armor.
Yeah, this is I'm sorry. This is a whole new mark. Is superhero, what is that company? Superhero Stuff R Us, whatever.
Yeah.
If they're still in business, they need to invest in back issue bin knee pads.
I
Yeah.
still get promotional emails from them from time to time. So yeah, they still exist.
Yeah, as a
Yes.
company, yeah, but it's not. I don't think it's the same people that own them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't have a warehouse in Robizonia anymore.
Yeah,
No,
no,
they
I
don't.
agree with that.
But so yeah, so and it was the thing. I bought a 3-day pass for Baltimore, had the hotel for Friday night and Saturday night, but we left Saturday because I had done all my shopping. I'd gone through the bins several times. I'd said hi to everybody, and it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go home now. So we, left the day early and cut our losses. And but again, I had a great time. Don't get me wrong, it was a great con. I could have spent more time going through all the bins if I really wanted to get very finite. And again, like I said, if you wanted to get autographs, there was plenty of time to do that and talk to creators, which I think, again, Baltimore and Heroes Con are two of those cons that are great for creators. And actually, I bought a lot of the dollar bins. I think the Rorschach books I got from Shelton Drum from Heroes aren't hard to find, who was up there with his wares.
Yeah.
But that was Baltimore Con. And then the month later, I went to New York Comic Con. Now, I only went to New York on the Saturday, only for a few hours, because my main goal was to see our friends from the UK who came over, who used to do the London Super Comic Convention. They were in the States. Went to catch up with them. And I just wanted to hit the con for a little while, hoping I could find some more of those dollar bins. And no, that wasn't going to happen at New York, especially on a Saturday when it was packed. So I didn't spend too much time there, but I did want to see our good friend Uncle Sal. So I got to chat with him for just a little bit. He actually has people who wanted to talk to him, so I didn't want to hold up too much of his time. But again, he's in fine form. He's looking great. He says hi to everybody, as always. So that was cool to see him. I also ran into Paolo Bellafiore from Cadence Comic Arts, who says hi to all the guys. And actually, he was down in Artist Alley. The Artist Alley from New York Comic Con is a sight to behold. There's just so many aisles and everything, and the way they have it sort of organized is kind of interesting. And you see it at some other conventions, when you'll have an art rep have all of his artists in the same area there, whether it's Cadence Comic Art, Essential Sequential, Felix Comic Art, what have you. It's all together there. So that's kind of I guess the trend with setting up at the conventions. But I did also have one other ulterior motive for going to New York Comic Con. I wanted to drop off some things.
You wanted to drop off COVID and plague everybody?
No. I was in and out of there. I don't think I got the vid. I got my second shot. Oh, and there's a base hit. I'm sorry, I'm watching the game at the same time. I wanted to drop off a couple of comics at Comic Link auctions to see how they would do. From my collection, I somehow had a second copy of Superman 199, the first Superman Flash race, like 1967. Now, I should have thought ahead of time and scanned the front and back cover just to get an idea of what I thought it was, maybe like a fine grade. So I gave that to Comic Link, and what they're going to do is they're going to submit it to get it graded, and they're going to put it up for auction for me. And the cost, it is like a 15% off cost for the grading, and the cost comes out of my winnings, and they take 10% of what the final auction price is, and I get the rest. So I wanted to experiment with my collection of selling some things, and that was something I had a duplicate of, so I gave them that comic book, which who knows what's going to go for. But also, I have Batman Beyond, the very first miniseries, had the first 2 issues of the 6-issue series, but not the rest. So I put that up for auction. And that's the very first appearance of Terry, I can't think of his last name. Terry McGinnis as Batman. So I put those up, and of course, I think I read them in 1999, put them in a bag and board, and just left to forget about them. So they're going to get that graded for me. So again, it's sort of a test run for me selling some of my comics. Now, again, these are special cases. I want to see what the cost is for the grading, what grades I get, and what price I get. So this is sort of an experiment. As I'm still organizing the comics, I've sort of ran into a spot where I'm reading them again.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put them back in alphabetical order. And I could use some more boxes. And, I'm kind of lazy. So we'll see how well that goes.
So there was no money down when you put those comics?
No, because again, they'll take their cut out of the winnings. They're 10%.
Yeah.
Plus the price of getting them graded. So in my head, I think for the 3 books, it might be, let's say, between $70 and $80 to get it graded, get those 3 books graded. But those 3 books, in my opinion, at auction combined might go for close to $1,000. So I might net $800 to $900. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see how it goes. And I was also under the impression that the grading company was backed up for several months. Like I figured I wouldn't see him for like maybe 8 months to a year. They said, "Oh no, it's under control. I might even see one of the auctions as soon as like November."
Wow.
So I'll keep you guys informed. I don't want to necessarily solicit bids or anything like that, but just to see how it goes. It's an experiment.
Those Batman Beyond issues, they're that in high demand.
The very first Batman Beyond I think even in an ungraded raw book in like near mint in the most recent Overstreet guide goes for about $350.
Wow.
And that's $350. Yeah. So if you have that in your back issue bin, boys and girls.
Yeah, I don't think I have that one, but wow.
Raw books. How dare you?
Yeah, I need to get you going there.
That's interesting.
So that was my trips there.
Yeah.
I think the last time I was to a con was a Baltimore con. I took Ben down, and it was during Arrow's heyday because we met what's her name who played Partridge Family guy's daughter, Cassidy.
Oh,
Kate Cassidy.
Yeah.
I surprised Ben with that because he had a friend in school who watched Arrow as well. She had gone down to a Philly con and got to meet Stephen Amell and got a picture with him. And she was like, "Hey, look at this. So I found out that Kate Cassidy was going to be at Baltimore, bought tickets, bought a picture op thing. And we get down there and I told Ben he was going with me and he was like, "All right, well, whatever. It's fine." We get down there and I said, "I got a surprise for you. We're going to go here." And his face lit up. He was like, "Oh my God." So that was kind of a neat, all excited thing. I think that was the year that we were walking around and Peter Mayhew was being driven by and he kind of poked his cane at Ben and waved and smiled at him, and Ben got a kick out of that because we had walked by earlier and I said, "Well, that's the guy who plays Chewbacca." So that was cool, but that's the last con I was to.
I didn't realize her dad was David Cassidy.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of Comic-Cons, on one last thing, I'll gauge your guys' interest. What are your guys' thoughts about going to the Philadelphia Comic-Con on Sunday, November 12th? It's at the Clarion Hotel down near the airport. Maybe it's more of a comic-centric show.
Yeah.
It's $4 admission, free parking. There's a lot of vendors there: Golden Age, Silver Age, modern issues, action figures, non-sport cards, more. Because I think I'm going to go down, and if we can get maybe a carpool going, just think about that, because I want to look for some more dollar books, for goodness sake. I can't stop now.
I'm afraid that day is right off the table for me. I'm singing in a concert that afternoon.
Ah, that's correct. Remind me again of the.
It's a Rogers and Hammerstein review.
That's it.
I'm out that day. My youngest is coming home from college that weekend, so I know I'm already out that day.
Well, thanks for nothing. Well, then it's all the more comics for pants then.
Yeah. Well, Chris tried to get a group together to go see the Marvels that weekend and also maybe clean up the CGS studio, but
yeah.
And that's the Pants birthday weekend, so that's why I'm going to head down to the con there.
I always forget you're a Scorpio like me. Yeah.
That's correct.
That's right. It's happy Scorpio season.
Exactly.
Yeah. Both of you and my wife. and Alex.
Oh,
Oh, the old days. All of you are right around the middle of November.
Yeah, I've got 2 aunts and 2 cousins in that range also, all on the father's side of the family.
we're multiplying.
You're not gremlins.
You want to talk some comics? And anybody get a chance to read anything that I sent out?
Yeah, I read all of them.
Okay.
Yep, twice, in fact.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So
I'm going to say I'm getting older. I'm getting crankier. I got a new laptop. I'm just having so much trouble and frustrating anger. My eyes are bad. I didn't read the comics on the computer that you sent. I got a physical copy of Wonder Woman #1. So that I regularly got it, but I didn't read the others. Oh, see, Merd's got the physical copies because he's old school too.
I do
Just so
have
happened that they were all comics that I had ordered anyway.
I do have the
Good.
physical copies, but I did read them on my iPad because I didn't have the physical copies at that point yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Had I had an iPad, possibly, but I don't need that. So it's like I can't read these books. I'm so angry.
well, that's what you should do, Pants. If you get into this auction thing, you could easily finance an iPad easily, and then suddenly
That's true.
your whole world will open up again.
That's how I bought my first iPad, was selling a bunch of stuff to Wild Pig. So I could buy an iPad to read comics on.
I mean, I still read on the laptop. I have an old iPad, but it's I can't use it anymore. But between the DC app and if I did have an iPad, I read it on my computer now, or my phone. I would read so much more because it's just so easy on the iPad.
Right, but it's easier for me to take off the glasses, open up the book, and shove my nose into it. That's what I like to do.
Sure.
It's just,
And I still like doing that too. Don't get me wrong.
So I thought we would read the first issues of Captain America #1 because that J. Michael Straczynski has come back to write Captain America. The artist is Jesus Saiz on that. And then also Wonder Woman #1 by Tom King and Danielle Sampere. And then Transformers #1 as part of the new Energon universe over at Robert Kirkman's Skybound. And they're going to eventually do some G.I. Joe comics as well. And that's by Daniel Warren Johnson. So,
It's a revival of Off the Racks. It's a Marvel, a DC, and an independent.
It is.
Yeah,
and you guys can use the buy, borrow, pants system.
We
I
could.
was wondering that myself.
We could. Plus, I didn't even realize, I was thinking about it at one other point, but I was like, okay, for obvious reasons, I wanted to do the Captain America and the Wonder Woman. I mean, major writers on these characters, they wind up both being patriotic. And then I'm like, oh, wait, Optimus Prime is red, white, and blue too. Wow, there's all these other weird connections for these. Do we want to start with that? We want to start with what's your buy bar? How many? Oh, what did we used to do? We used to say how many we had first. Don't tell us what it was, but how many buys, how many borrows, how many pants did you have?
Oh, I don't remember that.
I remember that.
Well, okay, maybe but let's do it that way. That way we don't know which ones,
Okay.
Adam, go ahead.
I got 2 buys and a borrow.
2 buys and a borrow. Okay. Shane?
I don't know. I'd buy them all. I did.
Well, I literally did buy them all, but in hindsight,
Yeah, I think I would. Didn't we used to bastardize and say like Bayaro or something like that?
Yeah, we did that.
We did occasionally, yeah.
Two buys and a Bayar is almost like Bizarro. Yeah. And you only read the one, Pants?
Yeah, so I'll give that a buy.
Okay.
Surprise.
Okay. Adam, what was your borrow?
My borrow was actually the Transformers comic.
And why is that?
Well, it was good enough. I mean, it had a kind of a raw energy to it with Johnson's artwork here. It's kind of an earthy indie vibe to it, and kind of energy that's reminiscent of a guy or a kid, I should say, just hanging out on his living room floor, playing with his toys and making up stories around them. And he has a little creator's essay at the back of the book saying that that's pretty much literally what his history with the Transformers is. He tells an anecdote about how he took his Optimus Prime on the school bus for show and tell and lost its little fists on the
Oh,
bus before he even
God.
got to school. It's heartache and tragedy. Yeah, I like the personality he brings to some of the Transformers characters. Some of the highlights were when Optimus is grieving over the gangland executed form of Bumblebee, and when Soundwave, one of the most robotic of personality Transformer characters, is quietly mourning for the destruction, or at least heavy damage done to his little shape-shifting cassette tape pet Ravage. And just Starscream being Starscream, just the selfish whiner that he always was. So he's got some good personality breathed into some of these characters. On the whole, it's just a little rough around the edges, and it might even go so far as to say crude for me. It's not quite as polished as I tend to expect a Transformers comic to be. It's kind of an aesthetic preference there. It was good. It was fun. It's an interesting new take on the Transformers franchise. I know Brian Deemer's one comment about these things was that he really loved this one, and Cousin Buzz was on Facebook a little while ago praising it up to the stars, and our friend Bill Dowdy, the library boy, posted the panel where Optimus Prime is body slamming Starscream and says, if this panel from Johnson's new Transformers series of Optimus Prime delivering a picture-perfect suplex to Starscream doesn't bring you joy, then you're beyond my ability to help you. Well, it was kind of fun, Bill. I would not have known that what Optimus was doing was called a suplex if you hadn't told me, because I'm no kind of wrestling fan. But yeah, yep, good enough. I'd like it even better if I didn't pay to read it. So that makes it a borrow.
Yeah.
I think it's almost because of that roughness. It's so different from other Transformers comics that we've had in the past. Like, remember was it Pat Lee?
The IDW ones that really were refined.
Or was it Dreamwave? I'm thinking like
maybe Dreamwave. Yeah,
Dreamwave Studios, where it was like every little seam and rivet and whatever is on their body could be seen.
Yeah.
That's always the thing about a Transformers comic. How are the Transformers going to look? And it's surprising that in his style, which is very energetic and kinetic, it worked for me, even because he really went for those classic looks. So even if he shortchanges some of the specificity of their designs, Optimus Prime. I mean, I don't even think, I haven't thought about Transformers in a long time, but yep, there's Starscream, there's Ratchet, like there's the ship that crash lands on the Earth from the old cartoon series, it seems like,
Oh, they followed they followed the basic premise of the first cartoon, which really is also the first comic book, storyline, and just tweaked it a little bit, changed it a little bit. So I'm curious what happens from that. Because it is very similar.
Plus the whole notion of like they're being revived slowly by Teletran 1, but then Optimus destroys it, and what happens now, and where is Megatron? Why can't you say his name? So you're right. I think it does feed on the nostalgia of what you might know, whether you're a big fan or whether you're not a big fan of Transformers. So this was a buy for me. I had a lot of fun reading. It's colorful. Could you have a kid read it? Absolutely. I think the good thing is that it has the backing of Skybound and Image and Robert Kirkman. And my hope is that is a recipe for longevity and maybe collections that get out there in bookstores, so it becomes semi monetarily that it makes money, let me put it that way, so that it can at least be around for more than just 2 years. That would be great.
I agree, and I'm a little bit more invested in it because I did enjoy the surprise of what was revealed in Void Rivals and the connection in this Energon universe between Void Rivals and Transformers and what will be G.I. Joe. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan. I was never as much of a Transformers toy fan. I had some, but not many. But I always loved the cartoon and the comics. I read a bunch of the comic books for quite a few years, and G.I. Joe, I was in hip deep in that for, gosh, the first 100 issues of that comic book originally from when Marvel did it. So I'm really curious to see what this was. So I did enjoy it a little bit more than what you did, Adam. But there's nothing wrong with that. If I had to say one thing I didn't like is Spike's father's depiction. I'm not thrilled about that yet, but that might have something later to do that we'll see. So I'm not opposed to it, but I was like, oh, Spike and his dad were always kind of cool to me, that they were together in this journey, and they're really far apart in this. But yeah, I enjoyed it for all the reasons that Peter said. The artwork's good enough, rough around the edges, so it's not quite as pristine, and the colors pop out from you. The story was pretty close to what I was hoping it would be. So yeah, I'm curious to see where they go for a while with this.
Not to mention the cliffhanger. It's not really a cliffhanger, but it's Starscream squishing a human. Have we seen him go that far in comics before?
Yeah, maybe in comics, not in the cartoon, but maybe in comics.
That was cool. I mean, not cool that he did it. It just was like, oh, we're going there. You know? Yeah. Which
really is what you would think of evil giant robots. I mean,
sure,
the Decepticons aren't going to give a crap about humans. They want whatever they want plus Energon once they figure that part out, and they'll strip anything they can do to make it happen.
I seem to recall in the cartoon they used humans as mind-controlled slave labor to generate Energon.
Yeah, yep. At one point they did. Yep,
maybe
absolutely.
Once he figures that out, he won't squish them quite as readily.
Yeah.
Oh, Pence is celebrating.
Something good's happening for the Phillies, clearly.
Yeah, I figured out that I'm like 30 seconds ahead of Pance's view, so I'm keeping quiet because I know he hasn't seen it yet.
Was Transformers a buy for you, Shane? Yeah, it was a buy.
He said everything was.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah, that was definitely a buy for me. Okay, good. Anything else for Transformers? No.
What was the cover price? What was the cover price? I'm just curious.
$4.99.
$4.99. How many pages did you get out of it? Was it 32? Do you know? I'm just curious because I haven't read it. And
just a second.
30 story pages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 36-page comic.
Adam, are you also getting the G.I. Joe? Adam and Shane, are you going to get those?
I care nothing whatsoever for G.I. Joe.
I'm getting the G.I. Joe ones, yeah.
I'm waiting for Visionaries Knights of the Magical Light. That's my Hasbro property.
Yeah.
IDW gave us one little Visionaries and Transformers team-up miniseries, which had very little in common with the original concept, and which I wouldn't go near. I'm just waiting for somebody, hopefully Skybound, to do it justice.
He did tease that there are more properties, so that's why I think I want the success of this, because I want to see what those properties are.
All right. Well, maybe I'll keep on buying Transformers then, just to encourage them.
I hope one of them is Mask. That one is way overdue.
Yep, I'm with you there, Shane.
Yeah, and I agree with yours too. I'd love to see Visionaries. I can't figure out why these properties have sat for so long. There's certainly a nostalgic market for them for our age group.
Yeah, well, there were plans to do a whole cinematic universe.
Yeah, with
all this Hasbro stuff, but it never quite gelled.
Nope, it didn't. So yeah, I'm on board. I'm curious to see what they do, not only with these single Duke and Cobra Commander books, but also because I think there's not only going to be the G.I. Joe that's set in this Transformers Energon universe, but I'm not sure that Larry Hama's continuation of A Real American Hero is part of this. That may be separate.
It would make sense if it were.
Yeah. And I read some of the Devil's Due stuff, but they really weren't part of that continuous numbering of G.I. Joe comics. Then that came back with, gosh, who had it last?
IDW.
I didn't read much of that at all. Mostly because I didn't like a lot of the artwork when I would see it, but I did pick up random issues here that looked interesting, and I have the last half a dozen issues of that run to read before I start reading Larry Hama's new continuation. I want to kind of bridge that gap a little bit.
Well, then let me go to my Bayaro. So stupid. I mean, it's a borrow. I mean, it's good. I just so it's Captain America.
I figured.
So it's Captain America. It's J. Michael Straczynski, and he's wanting to focus on the period of time when Captain America's mother dies, and before he becomes Captain America. So it's about 4 years, he says, from the age of 14 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it was unexplored territory, but I swear we got some other stories. I don't know. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, a couple. Well, he remembered Arnie Roth, Cap's childhood friend, which I think comes from the J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck run in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Hats off to him for putting Arnie in there.
Right.
I'm sure Jamie would approve of that.
So Straczynski does what I think he does very well is he does try to frame the book in some kind of narrative. And he did this, well, let me say, in some kind of larger narrative and then in some kind of more personal, grounded way. So like when he did Spider-Man, the larger narrative was, let's reframe Spider-Man's origin. Was the spider going to bite Peter before he got radiated or after he got radiated? It was like a different way of looking at the chain of events, right?
Yeah.
That was like the larger narrative. And then he starts talking about totems, et cetera, et cetera. But then the more grounded thing was, let's make Peter Parker a teacher and see what that does, right? So I feel like he's doing that in some ways with Captain America. Captain America is narrating his own comic. He's talking about how stories begin, how they end. But then on a personal level, because he's Captain America, the building that he grew up in is going to be sold off. So he decides to get Tony to buy it. And he is going to renovate it, have everybody live under rent control. And he's going to try to be, a much better landlord.
Superhero superintendent.
Yeah, there you go. and what that means in terms of what he can do on a personal level as Steve Rogers versus what he does as Captain America. And then all of this is countered against flashbacks of when he's younger and he's struggling to find home. He has to raise money to go rent a room for $10 a month or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think 10. He wanted 30 or something up front.
Right.
First 3 months.
Yeah, right. So he's having to work and he's hungry and someone says, oh, you should go into the park. They're giving away free sandwiches. Yay, he's a happy kid. And it turns out to be the German-American Bund, which is the
American Nazi Party.
Thank you. Yeah. And whatever that means. So, interesting premise, I'm sort of there, I haven't read a Captain America comic. Well, I actually started to read the last time they restarted it, which was just last year. But I didn't finish it. It feels like a J. Michael Straczynski book on that level to some degree. And you also get really nice interjections with the Fantastic Four. Like you see his place within the Marvel universe. And next issue, we're going to have Spider-Man. I was a little taken back by the artwork. It's Jesus Saiz, which when I looked up, I was like, wait a minute. He did that Manhunter series with Kate Spencer that I really loved. And Mark Andreyko, I think, was the writer. And
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was really just a great series. Really dug the artwork. And he's done other things too, obviously. But it has this weird John Cassaday, this sort of like, I don't know. I don't want to say robotic, but there's some kind of like, the figures look, I don't know if he's working digitally or what, but it just, the artwork took me out of it a little bit in places. In some places, some of the anatomy felt I almost hate to say it, almost a little amateurish, like when someone's just starting off and like the characters look like squished a little bit, proportions seem off. So Not a bad comic. Like I said, it's a in between borrow and buy for me. I think it's interesting. I just want to see it rev up a little more as we go.
Well, and I'll explain this. I say buy for this issue. I'm not sure that I would buy every single issue of this. It didn't grab me that way, but I liked this story talking about his parents, the building he lived in, helping out people that can't help themselves. That's what appealed to me in this issue. I don't know how long I could read about just Steve being a landlord if there's not much else happening. I like the inclusion of the Fantastic Four. Like you said, I like the place that you can see Steve in the Marvel universe here. Like, oh, hey, we got to go do this thing. Can you help us out? Yeah, sure. I'm just fixing up the apartment here. And then off he goes. That's great. But I don't know that I can read longevity in this capacity. If we're going to, not that it's not going to be interesting, because I do like the grounded Steve Rogers helping out the fellow man kind of angle to it. But I liked the very first issue as a buy. I'm glad I have the Marvel app because that's how I will read it.
Yeah.
Always.
For me, it's the strongest buy of the lot. For me, I enjoyed Straczynski's approach here. I thought he gave us a lot of different sides of Steve Rogers here. You got Captain America, the superhero, facing over-the-top threats like a disgruntled, cuckolded man who's going after his former boss in a giant robot wolf or thylacine or whatever that's supposed to be. And you got that little sojourn to the microverse that Shane mentioned with the Fantastic Four to battle Psycho Man and his Psycho daughter. And we're kind of getting an image here of Steve Rogers as like the good neighbor to the entire Marvel universe, the affable, helpful guy that everybody comes to when they're in a pinch and need a quick superhero team up. Like next issue, in kind of the grand Marvel tradition, we're getting a Spider-Man cameo in issue 2, so it's going to be kind of more of the same thing there, where Cap takes time off from his busy schedule to help Spider-Man fight the Sinister Six. So you've got the superheroics in place, you've got Cap as the everyman, you've got Cap as the grassroots philanthropist and social activist. This angle with his buying his apartment building, which is the same one we learned that he and his parents lived in when he was a little shaver before they both died. We've got what else have we got? Well, we've got Cap as the. I love the fact that we're getting into those hidden years of Steve Rogers' life between when he lost his mother and when he actually took the super soldier serum. And you're right, Peter. I'm sure that we've seen glimpses of this before, but that's no reason we shouldn't see more of it. And I was wondering where this was going. I was thinking to myself, okay, we've got all this stuff. I'm glad we got this 1930s young Steve Rogers thing happening. What we need is something that's a little more overtly, patriotic / political, something having to do with the American identity. And just as I thought that maybe Straczynski left that out of this first arc, boom, there's that last page where young Steve encounters the Buntist rally in Central Park, and that's got me.
Yeah.
I like the other stuff that's going on too. I like all the superhero weirdness. I'm still a little leery of the apparent antagonist here, this millionaire Travis Lane person who hikes into the rainforest and is possessed by some kind of apocalypse demon called Asmodee or whatever it is. Straczynski he doesn't impress me with his creation of comic book villains. He's given us people like Morlun and Shathra and just quasi-demonic figures, and this Asmodee thing it doesn't inspire great hope for me, honestly. But I do like the fact that Asmodee in Lane's body is immediately going to AIM, who's a traditional Cap antagonist, and the blurb for the next issue says that he's then going to set about recruiting a bunch of Cap's traditional enemies into whatever AIM-based force he's getting together to change the world in secret ways to make it the way he wants it to be for the next 1,000 years. Straczynski's writing in this thing takes a couple of shortcuts that kind of turn me off. Like, for example, when Lane is talking to the AIM scientist lady, and Straczynski kind of excuses himself from scripting Lane's irresistible pitch to the AIM scientist lady that gets her to join his cause. Like it's like on a sitcom where the screen flips around to show the passage of time, and suddenly the AIM scientist lady is like, "Wow, that's the most sensible supervillain scheme I've ever heard. I'm totally in now." Yeah, couldn't let us in on that, could Straczynski? And also the sort of the Cap first person monologue that forms the spine of the story, where it's like going on about how this is how stories begin. Some stories begin this way, some stories begin that way. That's just Straczynski racking his brains to come up with some through line for this story, some kind of framing motif for it, and to get the story off the ground. And so he just kind of throws up his hands and says, "Hey, I'm going to be meta about it and have it be a monologue about how stories begin. I'll begin the story by having Cap talk about how stories begin," which felt a little forced and, like I said, a little kind of a cop-out. So, yeah, but Straczynski did enough other things right with this, and I like that he's giving us multiple different aspects of the Captain America character. So there's something for a few different kinds of Captain America fan happening here. And I love the fact that, he threw Arnie Roth in there. So that's a sign that he's done at least some research into Cap's history. The signs are positive here. I'm going to enjoy this going forward, I'm pretty sure. I know Shane says he's only giving this a buy for the first issue. I'm giving it a buy, on spec for the rest of this first arc at least. I think I'm going to like where Straczynski is going.
Yeah. I actually like that the plan wasn't detailed, because if Straczynski is going to continue to use it to throw us off about what parts of it will happen, because then we don't know anybody in Captain America's life could potentially be part of the plan. We don't know what that is just yet. So on that level, I sort of appreciated it, because also, he probably would write himself in a corner if he would say it and then she says, "Well, that's the greatest super villain plan I've ever." Is he really going to?
He could have teased us a little instead of just skipping the entire conversation.
I think some of that teases that Captain America is the target, but then again, it is a Captain America book, so of course he is the target.
Right. So yeah. I'm just waiting to see what Straczynski's rationale is for Lane making Cap a target, if indeed he is.
Plus, that scene took place 2 years ago, right? That's the other thing so this plan has already been put into effect.
For 2 years.
I missed that. I thought this was all happening roughly the same time.
So at least that part of it, let's see, when we get to that part, it says 2 years ago, somewhere in South America, that's when, and then it says 1 month later is when he meets.
Okay, yeah, I didn't read the captions, I guess.
Yeah. So I think that adds to, some of that is already going on, but there's not enough information yet in this first issue to see what that could possibly be. So, cool. Okay.
I do also agree, Peter. The art is a little off for me, but for me, it might be the coloring. I don't know. It just something about it's not quite what I like in art or coloring.
I actually like the art quite a bit, and I see what you were saying about the Cassidy similarity there, Peter. But it also kind of reminds me of Steve Epting's art on the old Marvel's Project miniseries, especially of course, the 30s sequences. Yeah, I find it visually pleasing.
Pants,
I was curious. What was the cover price and the page count again? Just out of curiosity.
Oh boy, they got us for $5.99 with this one. I don't think I even realized that when I pre-ordered it, and I'll be surprised if it's more than 32 pages.
31. Well, 30 if you take away that title page that has no art on it. So the story page it's 30. But
okay, and it's like 38 pages altogether.
Gotcha.
Yeah, well, Marvel's all in. They're all in on, just yanking your money out of your pockets if you're buying.
But and that's a huge reason why I got the app, just because if there's anything I'm even interested in, I'd rather pay a year for the app and read enough just to cover the cost of the app is still worth it for me.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where I'm reading the preview solicitations a little more carefully to figure out if I'm getting the most content for the dollar. And there have been some things, as particularly from Marvel, because as Peter says, they're not at all shy about this, that I have foregone buying precisely because I don't like the dollar to page count ratio.
Yeah.
Not only that, but if you read a comic and it takes 2-3 minutes to read, you know, the
Is it
cost
worth
of it,
$7?
right? I know reading a Tom King comic, I'm gonna not only am I gonna read it and it's gonna take time to read it, I'm gonna read it more than once. So
You'd be cheating yourself not to.
yeah. But other ones, you're like,
Yeah, I think this is probably like at a discount on DCBS.
Oh yeah. But even like the Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Void Rivals, if they were on an app somewhere where there was like more together, I probably would just get the app and not even buy the issues. I would just read them on that. But there's nothing like that for these yet. Easily.
I wonder, could you find them at a future con in dollar bins?
You could.
But you have to stay away from spoilers from that time.
I don't want to wait that long.
I got you. I'm just saying there's different strokes for different folks.
Oh, sure.
I prefer not to take the chance. If I really want to read something, I just want to make sure I have it in my possession.
We actually got an email about that, or I got an email from Matt Williams, a gentleman that has, I talked to through email, and he's a librarian, and he mentioned Hoopla, right, which I think most of us probably are familiar with.
Yeah, I have it.
And he says most of the major publishers like DC, Marvel, Boom, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, and Dynamite put their works on Hoopla as collected editions, single issues, or both. And you can range that through your library if they have it. And the article also notes, he talks about there was an article on Comic Speed about it, but that creators receive payments based on specific borrows of their titles through Hoopla.
Oh, okay.
Or through Hoopla or through the libraries. Also says there's a new app called Global Comics with an X that's in the public beta phase, and it will eventually offer single issues for sale as well as a subscription service. And they've recently added Boom and Image to the list of publishers that they offer. And this was in response to CGS 1910, whatever we talked about in that episode.
I mean, it all sounds great, but I'm just all physical media, for the comics.
And I get that. I get it.
We ain't coming to your house for a third time. We'll do it one more time for the back half of this collection.
I will.
But if I see anything from 2023 on, I ain't touching it.
I understand.
Peter will be there. Pants. Nope.
2023.
In the discard pile.
You can organize that yourself.
Yeah. All right. So then that leaves us with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman #1. Pants, you want to start us off with for this one since you
Wonder Woman.
Well, of course, it is a $4.99 cover price.
Well worth it.
Yes, and I think we got I want to say 30 pages. I'm going to guess of story, and in this one there was no ads in the story. All the ads were at the end of the issue. In fact, there really wasn't any non-DC in-house ads in the book other than the back cover and inside cover, although those are both Warner Brothers things. But yes, again, you said it's Tom King, and I forget the gentleman's first name here, and I can't find it. I'm sorry, Daniel Sampere is the artist there with colorist. Tomu Morey. Thank you.
They are a great colorist. They did Heroes in Crisis, and they just did some amazing work.
Worked with Tom King before.
Yeah.
Well, again, I gave this a buy. I was looking forward to this for quite some time. Just a great, thrilling, and again, you have to read it I've already read it twice. You don't even see Wonder Woman until like halfway through the book. The suspense is building. You have an incident with an Amazon killing 19 men. You have the backdrop of the whole political state we're in right now with the Amazonians. You have an appearance of Sarge Steel, which I didn't know. I thought, when was the last time we saw Sarge Steel? I don't know. Um, Great political intrigue. You really have to read this. There's a lot going on. I'm not sure I can even tell you 100% what's going on. I just know that I enjoyed it. It had me riveted. Fantastic art. The pacing was great. The art was great. It's a buy. It's the only DC ongoing book I am buying as it comes out. I'm pre-ordering it so I don't miss it. Yes, it's a $4.99 cover price. This was half off the first issue at DCBS. I've ordered up to issue, I think, 4 right now. They're 40% off. I will continue to get it because I enjoy the heck out of this book. There you go.
Yeah, I knew that I was gonna enjoy this. I knew it was going to hit Tom King's track record for retailers. I don't mean comic readers, but for retailers, they support his stuff because they know they're going to be able to sell. And if the issues don't necessarily sell, DC has enough faith in Tom King to put out gorgeous collections, hardcovers, soft covers, multiple versions that are going to continue to sell. Whether it's because, Supergirl might be the next, his story might be the next Supergirl movie, whether it's all of the Batman stuff he did, or just the success of Vision and Mr. Miracle and Strange Adventures and Human Target, which I just turned. Brian texted me a while back and he said, he asked my opinion on Danger Street. And while I love it, I was like, that might not be a Brian comic, because it's a little bit left of center of a lot of things, and
it's kind of a deep dive into DC obscurity,
right?
Is not usually his cuppa,
right? And I had read all the first issue specials in anticipation of Danger Street. So going in that way makes the story even more rich. So I said, have you read Human Target yet? And he said, no. And I said, read that. I think that is more up your alley. But he's liked other things that Tom has done. So anyway, my point is, for all of those reasons, I was like, this was so smart for DC to put Tom King on this kind of book. She needs this right now. She has not, as a series, has not had a major success in a long time. And it might get people to actually read a Wonder Woman comic, which might get them to go get back issues for Wonder Woman or collections, and maybe turn people who stay away from the character for one reason or another into fans of the book. And the character. I also really, in an odd way, thought this was a modern version. I don't think this is a 100% well thought out thought, but it feels like a modern lens of the TV series in a way.
Visually, at least, the way Daniel Sampere put those little stars all over everything, it was very much the visual language of the Linda Carter series. I totally.
But even just the fact of, number one, making it political again, setting it in DC, having Steve using humans, quote unquote, humans as your villains, there was just something about it that I was like, I don't know. It just made me think of this sort of like modernized take on the old TV series. And if it is that, great, because I want to see multiple costumes and over the top villains. And, but yet he also obviously has a lot of parallels to what's going on, in our own political climate and all that, which Tom King is good at. So, for all those reasons and for the artwork and, I'm just glad to read a Wonder Woman comic again. I love the character. I've been reading her for a long, long, long time. One of my joys of back issue bin diving is finding Bronze Age Wonder Woman comics, which are sometimes hard to find cheaply, and coming across and like going, oh my God, here's several issues of Wonder Woman comics that I don't have from pre 300, for when she was in the pre-crisis era. So I'm sort of all in on this.
Yeah, I am too. I enjoyed it. It was not the direction I thought it was going to be. And like Pan says, you don't even see Diana until almost halfway through the book. The whole preamble up to that point was not what I was expecting. And it was interesting and fun and grounded. The art was gorgeous. The coloring was beautiful. I enjoyed it from cover to cover. And I didn't think I wouldn't. There's not much that Tom has written that I haven't liked. And like you said, putting him on this is just hitting it out of the park with this first issue.
Yeah.
Oh, couple of quick things before I forget. I forgot to mention, like in the last page, the concept just introduced of the lasso of lies.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, we'll see how that goes. And Peter, my Wonder Woman collection goes way back. I have some early issues scattered, but I have from issue 110, cover dated November 1959, all the way to the end.
Wow.
I think I remember seeing some of those when we were.
Yeah, I know you did.
Yeah. I was like,
I was at the other end of the alphabet, but I would have liked to have seen them.
So
you were the A's and the B's.
Did you read Wonder Woman 800, the little prologue to this?
I did. Oh, I might even have it handy. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, because that's where you get to see the first appearance of her quote unquote future daughter Trinity.
Right. And the idea here is that the Sovereign is telling this whole story to her. Right. He says,
"No, I don't think I read that."
Yeah, so at the back of issue 800, they do a prologue to the story set 20 years in the future, I believe, and it's Damian as Batman, John Kent as Superman, and Trinity, this new character of Trinity, meant to be Wonder Woman's daughter. You don't know who the father is. She's obviously a couple years younger than the two guys, and they're meeting up. And then she goes into this like prison where that old character at the end of issue 1 is, and he decides to tell her this story about his confrontation with her mother. Yeah.
I'll go back and read that.
It's the only reason why I love anniversary issues, but
yeah, I have it, but I didn't read it. I like you. I like anniversary issues.
Yeah.
I just got, what was it? Something Superman for issue 850 just came in a shipment today, but I got it just because it was an anniversary issue.
And I got it because I knew that she was going to be part of this coming series. Plus, it's a kind of buzz for the first appearance of Trinity, so that's why I made sure I got that issue.
And then they did a reprint with her on the cover. I wound up ordering that as well.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. Tom King makes me spend money. It's like, yes, exactly, Adam. It's like, come on.
Well, I'm waiting for all 12 issues of Human Target to come out in a volume.
Yeah.
You've got 2 volumes now, but no, I want the whole thing.
Yeah.
You guys notice that DC is starting to do legacy numbering on the covers too.
Oh, sure.
This one is now legacy number 801.
Right.
Holy, I did not see that.
I didn't
Adam.
see that.
Thank you very
I missed
much.
that.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. How
Boy,
about
that's
that?
tiny.
Yes, it is.
I'm glad they put it there, though.
Yeah, I kind of wish it were the only issue number on the cover.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
another story.
Well, which would sell more copies, 801 or 1?
Right. Captain America has Legacy 751.
So it does. Well, Marvel's been doing that for close to 20 years now, though.
Yeah. DC has done it before, too, with some of their other titles, too.
Yeah, they have.
Who has Adam? Did you talk about this issue?
I haven't yet, but yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. As you've said, it's a Tom King, so it's pretty densely written, and it's well worth more than one read through. Just make sure you're catching everything that he's doing, and even 2 read throughs aren't enough sometimes. And here he and artist Daniel Sampere, who I think got my nomination for best artist of last year. Because he was the artist on the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths miniseries, and showing his skills here as well. And also showing his and Tom King's love of the 9-panel grid once again, which, to tie this back to an earlier topic, is something that I think was inspired in Tom, in part at least, by Keith Giffen, who has been a major proponent of the 9-panel grid for years. But yeah, I agree with what Pants said about the excellency of the pacing, and just the structuring of the plot, and the fact that the character of Diana is kind of built up in the negative space of the first half of the story. It's all, there are allusions to her and what she thinks of all that's been going on about this scandal with the Amazon murdering 19 men and only men in that pool bar in Montana, and the subsequent spin doctoring and what the media cycle makes of it. There's a great use of the 9-panel grid there, as we show as the story evolves. The narrative unspools in the media, influenced unseen, of course, by the secret sovereign of the United States. And then Diana finally makes her big entrance, and you can just kind of hear the TV theme song exploding in the background, as sung by Shane earlier. Wonder Woman! All the world's been waiting for her for the first half of the issue, but the payoff is worth it. And it's interesting, kind of chilling, really, use of Sarge Steele. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen him quite this antagonistic.
Yeah.
Plus, he assigns a regional ethnicity to him finally. He's from Lubbock, Texas. I don't think he ever had that kind of ethnic identity before, but I think Tom just thought the horrible, despicable things he's doing in this issue in service to his country would carry more weight if they were delivered in this homespun, folksy Texas drawl. So there we go. Sarge Steele is suddenly from Texas. And the funny thing is, for me, from my time bubble perspective, I'm just now reading that Wonder Woman relaunch that happened in 2006, right after Infinite Crisis, written by Alan Heinberg with art by the Dodsons, when Donna Troy was Wonder Woman ever so briefly, while Diana herself was enjoying a life undercover as secret agent Diana Prince. And Diana Prince was working under Sarge Steele. Sarge Steele was like a supporting character in that relaunched Wonder Woman series, and now here he is as basically a villain in this one.
Right.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah,
he was working with Nemesis at the time too.
Yes, Nemesis was also a major player there. Tom is definitely doing an excellent job of weaving the stuff and pith of the current socio-political climate, and how contentious and divided everything is, and just this habit certain forces in our society have of setting up scapegoats and then just as culture war lines to just divide us for their purposes. And here we see the Amazons becoming such a scapegoat in this story. And the build to the villain, the device of having the villain retroactively narrate the whole thing, just having, to people who read Wonder Woman number 800, they'll know that to whom he's narrating the story. But just it's kind of cool that we know from the very beginning that roughly how it's going to end. And just have the villain introduce himself to us, even as he also sets the stage, describes his background role in all these events, and also helps to introduce us indirectly to the protagonist, to Wonder Woman herself, who, there's an interesting aside here, if you pay close attention to Tom's dialogue for Wonder Woman, he writes her clearly, though subtly, as someone for whom English is a second language. Just kind of reads just some of the unusual phrasings of herself she has, like the little missteps in grammar occasionally. But anyway, the build-up then to the reveal of the sovereign sitting there on his throne with his giant eagle breastplate and his crown and the lasso of lies in his lap. It's just... If it had been constructed by a less skillful writer, it would have seemed outright silly. The whole concept of the secret sovereign of the United States might see... to me, it sounds a little bit like something out of an old, Robert Kanigher Wonder Woman story. And you'll notice that the pool bar at the beginning of this issue is called Kanigher's, because the man wrote a lot of Wonder Woman stories in the 50s, many of which were not very good. I could also think of this as almost like a Bob Haney concept, or even something from a Jack Kirby Captain America story from the mid-70s. It kind of makes me think of the elite and their royalist forces, which were a part of the Mad Bomb story from the Kirby mid-70s Return to Cap. But it's such a skillfully constructed story, and the build-up is handled so well that when you finally see the king in his robes on his throne with the black malignly luminous lasso of lies cradled in his lap, you buy it. I mean, it doesn't seem like a silly Silver Age concept the way he's done it, but in a different concept, that is exactly what it would seem like.
Yeah.
So props to Tom for just displaying his skills here and making this unusual stew of ideas work in a big way. And now we'll just, I've always thought it was kind of unusual that Wonder Woman, being a character who is, after all, from completely outside of American society, would swathe herself in the red, white, and blue and her star-spangled hot pants. And now here's Tom exploring what happens when this kind of unusual fusion of Amazon outsider and patriotic theme, but when it sort of comes apart at the seams, and the United States, for reasons manipulated by the sovereign, reject her. So it's Wonder Woman versus America. I mean, the actual title of the arc is Wonder Woman Outlaw, but yeah, to see what happens when this adopted nation of hers turns against her, and I think to a greater scale than has been tried in the Wonder Woman comics before. Am I right?
Yeah. I would think so.
I mean,
with expelling everybody.
It's always interesting when because I just finished the first year of Injustice, and her the way Tom Taylor writes Wonder Woman in that, and that's an alternate universe, it's a video game. But then you also think about the way she's written in Kingdom Come, and even in New Frontier. Certain writers tend to push that notion that she has this quality in her that she is okay with being a little antagonistic, I
sort of think of when she broke Max Lord's neck too.
Well, sure. I mean, there you go. But and it's always usually in counter to what Superman's like or what Batman's like, right? You have to differentiate Wonder Woman from those two characters whenever you have the Trinity in play. So I forget who I was talking to, but I was like, boy, I would love, this was even before I think I knew Tom King was writing Wonder Woman. I was like, I would love a storyline in DC. I don't know how people would take it, where you would see Wonder Woman almost becoming not a villain, but what would she be like if she would turn, if she would try to be something other than what Superman is, what Batman is, because she has the power, because she has a country behind her, because, as you say, she's an adopted daughter of America, all that stuff. So this obviously is not going that way, but I do like those questions because
she is definitely at odds with America right now. And just like, based on what's happening to her people in America.
Like Adam said, it's evocative of think of the anytime Captain America got sick of his country, and he threw down the shield and changed costumes and got disillusioned, I think there's a reason why it evokes Robert Kanigher and Kirby and all those because of the time they grew up in, right? Like of course they're going to, especially the ones that created patriotic characters for a specific reason, right? So to punch Hitler or to, whatever. So rich with potential. And I think people clamor, at least I seem to see on Twitter or elsewhere, they want a return to long form stories, creative teams that are on books more than just 6 issues or 1 year. And Tom King hasn't been on an ongoing series since Batman. So I'm hoping people support it because I think we could really get a great run, if he's allowed to go beyond just the year, if the sales dictate. So
hope so.
All right, good. Well, there you go. Three very high marks, no pants for any of those issues. So, do you have time for some CGS history before we go? I know we're running late, but
yeah, absolutely. I love this segment.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this. By the way, if my gazintas are right, I believe this episode is episode 2222. It's our 2222nd episode. The math might be wrong. I've counted the spin-offs. I counted there's been like a weird 0.5, I had to go through and make sure I'm not counting like any repeated-ish episodes, but I think we're somewhere in that ballpark of how many episodes we've put out since 2005. All right. So these are September and October dates per year. We did a lot of interviews. I think a lot of it is because we're coming off of like post-summer con season, right? So we're doing a lot of it. All right. So in 2005, these all happened in September. Episode 52, conversation with Michael Lark, who was new to Daredevil at that point. Episode 57, interview with Doug Monk. Episode 59 was when we went to Palisades and talked to Mike Horn while we were down at Baltimore Comic-Con. Episode 58 was at Baltimore Comic-Con, Brian versus Robert Kirkman. That's when that happened. October of 2005, we interviewed Denny O'Neil. Episode 62. Episode 66, we interviewed Eric Larson. Episode 69, Mark Evanier. We did a Book of the Month Club. Tomb of Dracula Volume 1, we had Marv Wolfman on. And then in October of 2005, we started to do episodes on Infinite Crisis, starting with the first issue.
That's terrible. That's almost 20 years old.
We're almost 20 years old. Well, we're a lot older than that. But
yeah, we're a lot older than that.
As a podcast.
Let's go to 2006. More interviews. 175 in September. 175, we talked to Derek Robertson, who was the artist on Transmet and The Boys, right? Mike Perkins, episode 182. He was writing Union Jack, or drawing Union Jack, the miniseries at the time.
Which I'm just now reading.
Oh, cool.
And his art looks great on it, I will attest.
Yeah. October of that year, episode 185, we interviewed Mark Bagley. He was up to 100 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man at that point.
Wow.
And we're just about ready to get a new Ultimate Universe over at Marvel. 2007, September, episode 290, Binding Comics with Library Binding owner Jim Jessic. I just pointed that out because, binding was such a thing, right? Like we were getting into that.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's really sort of taken off, but back then we were feeling out which company was, the best. Episode 291 was a Cousin Buzz episode, but more importantly, it was the first official Iron the Pants TV trivia episode.
Oh, God.
No happy returns.
Yeah. I made sure when you left Peter, I buried that thing so far down you'd never find it again.
I tried listening to the episode to hear what the questions were because I wanted to ask you the questions again.
Oh, really?
For some reason, I couldn't find it in the episode. There's no timestamp. So I was like scrolling through, and I'm like, wait a minute, where is the actual? So 291.
I edited it. It's gone. I deleted it from episodes. They're all gone. Never find it again.
No. 2007, in September, we released episode 300 on September 24th. That was the episode we did from the fairgrounds. That was the last live event we did at Golden Eagle before we went to Super Show after that. That was a good one. Lem was on that one.
Yep.
We were in that other room,
Yeah, it was the former site of a restaurant, I think.
Yeah. We took that big picture out in front of the fairgrounds. That was great. 2007 October dates, episode 303, Book of the Month, Strangers in Paradise, Volume 1 with Terry Moore. All of those were done with Terry Moore.
I just started rereading Strangers kind of on the side a week or two ago.
Those were great episodes. Episode 315 was the big Star Wars versus Star Trek debate. I love listening to the beginning of that because nobody knew what the topic was, and then I announced it, and everybody was like, "Oh no!"
I don't get people that like one or the other. I like them both. I have always loved them both.
It's more than possible.
Yeah.
Well, you have to listen to that episode to see which one we sided with. Which was a whole other time, right? Because there weren't a lot of like content out, back then. 2008, September, episode 508 was our episode live from Super Show 2008. October 2008, episode 531, we talked to Jeff Lemire on Essex County Trilogy.
Oh, wow.
Such a great series, still creating to this day. You have to help me on this. I don't know if it's the first time you all went, but September of 2009, episode 682 was Fan Expo 2009. Was that the first time you went?
Oh gosh, it might be. I have to check the archives, but that was certainly a great con back in the day when it was all of us going up there across the border.
I know I only made it one time.
Well, because it said
up there.
Then it probably was, because it said you, Brian, and Pants were talking about Fan Expo, and I didn't go to the first one. I went to the second time you went. So October of 2009, we celebrated episode 700 with a live call-in show. And we did interviews with Jerry Conway on 701, Sal Buscema 703, and Guy Davis 715.
Wow.
All right. Then we'll jump to 2001 in September. It was
2001?
Sorry, 2011. 2011. That's what I meant.
It's a time bubble thing or what?
This was originally an iPhone exclusive episode. Katie Cook and David Peterson, and you all did an episode on the Muppets.
I remember that. That was a lot of fun.
I got everybody to sing at the end.
Yep.
Life's like a movie, right, wrong.
September 2011, episode 1129, started to do episodes on DC's New 52. That was week 1, part 1, because that was going on back then.
God, that was so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Everything got we were using the buy, borrow, pants rating system for that, as I recall.
Yep.
2012, September of 2012. Speaking of Baltimore and Tom King, episode 1273, Pants, you did a Baltimore Con wrap-up with Tom King in studio.
Yes, that's one of my favorite episodes, not because it's just him and I, but just talking to him was like talking to an old friend. We just hit it off great. He came to the studio, for God's sake.
Yeah. He did that a few times.
Yeah.
And it was just him and I just talking about the con, and we reminisced how I was actually on a Marvel panel. Anyway, fun episode.
Yep. You talked about a once crowded sky. Yeah, he was in multiple times too, because I remember being in studio when he was there one time. We talked about like Nightwing and a bunch of stuff.
And one of those times he brought that page from DC Comics Presents 52.
I didn't know where that came from.
Back.
Yeah.
October 2012, episode 1293 was the episode entitled Riding the Storm Out. Do you remember that episode?
Down at Stone Harbor.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, the hurricane or whatever.
That was during the big, there was a big hurricane at that time, but that was all 8 of us reunited in the studio because we had lost a host, I will say. Is that ringing bells?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mike Gallagher. Bleep that out if you want, but I'm saying it.
And we're then 10 years ago, 2013, episode 1423 was a review of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which had just premiered. So that's 10 years old. Episode 1433, an interview with Jamal Igle on Molly Danger. And episode 1432, 10 years ago, 2013, A Farewell to Pants.
Oh, yes.
Hey, you're back.
Yeah, one of the many times I left the show, and I decided to just make a big deal out of it time, which I shouldn't have, but yeah.
No, so you should have snuck out like I did.
But
wait.
Go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
Well, it's just amazing when you say these things out loud about how much we've done. I cannot believe this. For those who don't know, we used to do this show at sometimes 5 days a week. I mean, I'm sorry, 5 episodes a week.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd record them all on 2 different days, but
Yeah.
But we were just going like this, and you had some hits and misses. But I can't believe, looking back, how crazy were we to do that? But we were just living the dream, I guess.
Well, we had the time. We had more time, I should say.
Yep. We had fewer children.
But we also were more invested. I mean, we were in it, right? Like it was a different time. It wasn't social media driven, so we could get information, and we weren't bombarded with information. Like nowadays we are just bombarded with news and Twitter and all that. But back then you just went to a few places. We all kind of knew what was coming up. We all had, our finger on what we were reading. We could buy more books because they were cheaper, So obviously it makes sense, These newer podcasts, they can't hold a candle to what we were doing back then. And I have one more date, episode 1710 from September 17th, 2018. So 5 years ago, was the first episode recorded in the studio space as it is now.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you be. Those are your CGS dates for September and October.
Beauty.
Good deal.
All right. How are the Phillies doing?
Yeah.
It's aggravating.
It's not over till it's over.
Well, this episode's over.
This episode's over.
Let's put it this way. I'm glad we were doing the episode while they're on at this moment.
Yeah.
That's good conversation. All right, so we'll roll out. Autobots, roll out.